Edgar Cayce's Christ Consciousness. Part 4. Let the Christ consciousness guide and direct thee. It is true that all healing is of the divine source, and that source is in the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness in the earth was manifested through the lowly Nazarene. The Christ consciousness awakens, arouses thy consciousness to a greater and greater service to others. Seek rather ever to develop the soul of self to the attunement with the Christ consciousness, that is the promise of all. As was given by him, the body is the church, the Christ consciousness is that activity which motivates same within the individual. Begin and read Genesis 1 verse 3, and see that is to thee light, the light of men, even that one who is the Christ consciousness. Have I been able to raise the Christ consciousness in anyone? Oft. All that manifest the Christ life, the Christ consciousness, are the sons of God. Who is my mother? Who is my brother, my sister? He that doeth the will of the Father, the same is my mother, my brother, my sister. Not religion, not even goodness, but rather the practical application of, not the tenets but, the acts and the soul of the Christ consciousness in the material world is to be sought. In love, through love, God is love, in the Christ consciousness, the Christ Spirit, the Son of Man made same manifest in all the experiences through the earth. Keep hold on that seeking for the Christ consciousness. For this will come, if there will be the consistent and persistent. Thy will be done, O Lord, in me, and help me to serve where and when I am needed most. Eternal life is never earned, it is the gift of God, by the grace of God, through the giving of the life of the Master, Jesus, who became the Christ by overcoming death, hell and the grave, overcoming the world. If that ideal is the Christ consciousness, well. If that ideal is selfish developments, or the aggrandizing of activities in the carnal forces, then these must bring rather the fruits of such into the experience of the soul. Be used for something, not only good but good for something. That ye may bring into the experience of others, even by thine own ability to suffer, the glorious knowledge of the working of the Christ consciousness within the individual mind. No urge arising from astrological aspects, or from sojourns of the entity in the earth surpasses the will of the individual entity, when its trust, its hope, its desire is put in the mind of God or the Christ consciousness. For God will not allow any soul to be tempted beyond that it is able to bear, if the soul puts its whole trust in the creative forces manifested in the Christ consciousness. Replace animosities, hates, and fears with faith, hope, long-suffering, patience, and with the purposes not merely of self, but of self applying the principles of the Christ consciousness. Never become weary in well-doing. But not for self and not for any cause save that which is impelled through the way and the truth and the light, or the Christ consciousness. Ye abiding in me and I in the Father, ye may know that consciousness that I and the Father abide in thee. That is the manner in which the individual, the soul, may at this time become more and more aware of the Christ consciousness, that manifested by and through the man Jesus, that is the promise, and the sureness as shown in him from the Father unto thee. That as is to be stressed in this individual's portion of same, is raising the Christ consciousness in self and visualizing its activity upon that one, or those, to whom the aid is to be brought. And, as ye ask in my name, believing, so shall it be in the self-same hour. Should the Christ consciousness be described as the awareness within each soul, imprinted in pattern on the mind and waiting to be awakened by the will, of the soul's oneness with God? Correct. That's the idea exactly. First know thyself and that which is the motivative force of thy mental and material activities with those about thee. Then turning within, through those influences of the Christ consciousness, know that thou doest with thy might will have its blessings in those things that will come to bear upon thy life and those that ye serve. God walks and talks with those that keep his ways. If ye love me, keep my commandments, and I will come and abide with thee. That ye may become more and more aware of that in thine own experience that will bring the awareness of the Christ consciousness abiding in thee always. As we have indicated heretofore, and as we find existent in the present, there are physical disturbances of such natures as to hinder or to prevent that full realization of the abiding presence of the Christ consciousness. Yet there is the realization that it is, that it exists, that it helps, and that it is the only source of healing for a physical or a mental body. There should be first the general mental attitude of manifesting the fruit of the Spirit as set forth by many of those in the application of the Christ consciousness in the experience of the body. Practice, then, brotherly love, kindness, patience, long-suffering gentleness. We would begin then by first changing the mental attitude as to purposes, hopes, desires of the body. Do put the trust in prayer, in the Christ consciousness. Do begin there. Know that He is mindful of thee. Know that He cares. Know that through supplication, through prayer, many changes may come to the body and to the mind. It will also be necessary for the mental and spiritual attitudes to be in that way of never condemning self or others, but rather looking to that power which lies within to have every atom of the body and mind attuned to creative energies as in the Christ consciousness of His abiding presence with thee. Know first, in the spiritual attitude, as ye attempt to analyze self and self's abilities, self's faults, self's virtues, that the nearer ye may build thy mind to the Christ consciousness, the better may be the mental being, and a great deal of strength may be gained in the physical being also. What line of study is best for me to concentrate on? By this I mean esoteric studies such as Buddhism or Theosophy, etc. To be sure, as said, give the Christ consciousness. No yogi, no Buddha. Not that these haven't their place, but not in thy life in this consciousness. Mind is the builder. The master, as the mind, is the way, is the how, that one becomes aware through application, through administration of the hopes, the desires, the faith of the soul itself. For, mind is of body and of soul, and when purified in the Christ consciousness it lives on and on as such. Has my spiritual growth been consistent with my spiritual age? The growth is not in spirit. The growth is in what spirit, or according to the spirit with which ye would work. The growth is in the soul, in the ideal, in the oneness of the Christ consciousness. As we forgive, we are forgiven. As we condemn others, we are ourselves condemned. Thus in patience condemn not, either find fault. Not condoning, not agreeing, but let thine own life so shine that others, seeing thy patience, knowing thy understanding, comprehending thy peace, may take hope. For such comes only from finding the presence of the Christ consciousness in self. Who healeth thine iniquities? Who forgiveth thy sins? Who keepeth thee in every way? The Spirit of truth. The Spirit of love. The Spirit of helpfulness. The Spirit of patience. The Spirit of kindness. The Spirit of gentleness. And all are found in the one Christ consciousness. No, as has been indicated, not only through these channels but through the promises of Him whom ye seek to manifest among the children of men, so long as the Christ consciousness abides. There is little fault, little hindrance in physical, mental, or spiritual forces. Thy body is indeed the temple of the living God. Hold to that. By might and main of the mind, attempt to make the best, the most beautiful, the most acceptable temple according to thy concept of a living Christ consciousness. Hold to that. Let no one, in any manner, take that from you. As the individuals in such a group read, analyze, study, and apply those tenets, those truths that were presented by the Christ, they find that the Christ consciousness must become an individual, and yet a living thing within their own individual consciousnesses. Should the entity allow self to go out of the body? Allow self to go out of the body if, and when it has learned to surround self with the influence of the Christ consciousness, as to prevent the use of self's abilities by those that would hinder the life. The purpose of the individual should be that they may walk closer to the Christ day by day in every way. For his promise has been and is ever to each soul, if you will open thy mind, thy heart, I will enter, I will abide with thee. Not as a stranger, but as a brother, as a friend. There is being created that within the physical being that will have such Christ consciousness as to eradicate all disorder. There is being raised within me that Christ consciousness that is sufficient for every need within my body, my mind, my soul. Fill thou, O Father, my life with peace, harmony, and joy in the Christ life, the Christ consciousness, that it may purge me and make my life as thou would have it be. There is being created in my body that divine love of the Christ consciousness, that will eradicate all uncommon, or any desires that would hinder the body from being physically fit. May my ways and thy ways, O Lord, be one in the Christ life, in the Christ consciousness. And may his grace, and mercy, and peace abide with me. Our Lord, our God, we give thanks for thy love that is manifested in the Christ consciousness. Thou knowest my needs, O Lord, in body, in mind, in purse. All comes from thee. This we acknowledge. Help thou me, O Lord, in such measures that I may be worthy of thy grace, and in the use of thy purposes in the earth just now. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be in the Christ consciousness, that purgeth from all unrighteousness, and maketh the body whole in his service. Keep thou, O Father, my ways, directing me in the Christ way, that his promises may be fulfilled in my life. Father God, in that thou hast given to me the Christ consciousness, may I, in my daily walks before my fellow man, manifest the Spirit of the Christ, in humbleness, in love, in patience, in long-suffering. That I indeed may manifest the Spirit of the Christ consciousness.